Hi everyone, good evening and welcome back to the analysis session. Today is 20th July and this marks the fourth day of the CUET undergraduate examination. और इसके साथ ही phase 1 आज खत्म हो गया. 8 slots spread over 2 weeks. 15th को एग्जाम शुरू हुआ था, 16th को पेपर हुआ, फिर 19th and 20th. From now onwards, there is a gap of almost 13 days. 4th August, we will go for the phase 2 of the examination, where even the science students who are appearing for the JEE examination, which now starts on 23rd, not tomorrow. The revised date sheet have come. So the exam starts on 23rd now. वो students भी exam देंगे phase 2 में. And of course, जो commerce and humanities के students हैं, जिनके पूरे paper अभी complete नहीं हुए, उनका next phase continue होगा. ओवरऑल जो अटेंडेंस है एज पर एनटीए रिपोर्ट, आज का तो नहीं, कल का अगर देखें और पिछले 3 दिनों का देखें तो ओवरऑल ऑलमोस्ट दोनों स्लॉट्स को देखते हुए 75% of the students who registered for these 4 days or who registered for the examination and were allotted these 4 dates, उनमें से सिर्फ 75% स्टूडेंट्स ने एग्जाम दिया है. आई एम श्योर रिमेनिंग 25% वो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, उसमें से 1-2% वो स्टूडेंट्स होंगे जिनका एग्जाम मिस हो गया बिकॉज ऑफ द लास्ट मोमेंट सेंटर चेंज on day 1. टेक्निकल ग्लिचेस भी थे काफी सारे फर्स्ट 2 दिन में अगर देखा जाए, बट सिंस यस्टरडे I haven't come across any of the technical glitches, तो kudos to NTA I would say. और जैसा मैंने सेकेंड डे पे भी बोला था, सेकेंड डे की एनालिसिस में 16th of July को, कि hopefully as we go ahead, NTA will be able to take care of all this. बहुत बड़ा एग्जाम है, बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने रजिस्टर किया है, ऑलमोस्ट 11 लाख स्टूडेंट्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री आर राइटिंग द एग्जामिनेशन. So first time for everyone, not just for you, even for the NTA to manage, because for other examinations, NEET की अगर बात करते हैं, if you want to compare it with that, तो वहां पे स्टोरी डिफरेंट है. वहां पता है कि 3 पेपर का ही एग्जाम है, फिजिक्स, केमिस्ट्री और बायोलॉजी का. यहाँ they had 55,000 different subject combinations. So I think some issues are there and to accommodate everybody, but I think आज का दिन बहुत ही peaceful रहा. No issues. None of the students we have spoken to today had any negative feedback as far as the exam is concerned and even the paper is concerned. Paper को लेकर के तो अभी तक कोई negative feedback आया नहीं है. Yesterday I mentioned in economics paper, एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा था सेकंड स्लॉट पे जिसके 2 ऑप्शंस सेम थे. So hopefully both whoever has marked any of that 2 options, सबको marks मिल जाएंगे. That is the usual practice. So no controversies, no glitches for the last 2 days, and I think that is good for the students. But even otherwise, we told you. So we'll have that key takeaways. Let me introduce my colleagues for today evening. So I have with me Miss Sujatha Kshirsagar. She is a commerce mentor, and she is also the president and chief business officer at Career Launcher. And she wrote the exam today. So I think first-hand experience we are going to discuss with her. And we again have Pravin Choubey sir. So up yesterday.
Hello everyone.
So for the humanities parts, Pravin sir is a subject mentor for humanities segment. So I'll talk to both of them. So let me first go to Sujatha. And before I ask you any question about the exam today, I would want to know about your experience of writing the exam. And we were discussing a short while back. You said I'm writing an exam after 30 years. But more importantly, I want to know what was the reaction of students sitting next to you in the examination hall? So what was their reaction? What was the reaction on their face? Did anybody ask you? Can you help me out?
Okay. So, Amitendra, thanks. And yes, I'm writing after almost 30 years. I think early 93, late 92 is when I have given my CAT. That's 30 years back. So the reaction was sort of, people were looking at me as I entered the gate. A couple of them asked, are you a parent? But once I went and settled in, into the lab in my particular place, I think all the students, they were not surprised. At least they didn't look surprised. But I did have 2 of the invigilators come in and check, including my Aadhaar card, saying, "Sach mein aap likh rahe ho kya? And what is your age?" and things like that. But the students pretty much looked very serious and engrossed in their own work. But it was overall a great experience for me, per se. Very calm, very cool. Everything happened very smoothly. contrary to what I have seen, that did happen on the first 2 dates. I think they have streamlined a lot of stuff. So it was very easy. Entry was very easy. The process was very smooth. Overall, I would give 10 on 10 for the administrative angle that the exam center as well as the exam authorities have done.
Okay. Thank you, Sujata. So, that was really nice to hear about actually. So, in fact, I'm sure the students who are attending the session and those who are set to appear for the phase two examination, they'll definitely have that. They must be having that sense of relief now actually, because first 2 days, yeah, we discussed a lot about these things. There were a lot of media reports about how the things were going on. But on the very first day, we spoke about that when Deepak was here. So we spoke about why students should maintain that patience. Even in case of technical glitches, they have given that extra time.
Right.
So all that needed was to have that patience, and I think everybody has done well. One common reaction which is coming from the student is a lot of students even ask me today, the papers are very, very easy actually. So, what is going to be the cutoffs? Obviously, we can't predict the cutoff because NTA hasn't released the paper as of now. But hopefully, after all the papers get over, or maybe after the phase one, which has got over today, maybe in next couple of days, at least for phase one, they'll come out, or maybe at the end of 20th of the phase two, on 20th August, they might come out, but they'll definitely give you your paper. And in case you have any objections, you can raise that. Okay, so Sujata, you gave the paper in the first slot, which obviously had English and GT. GT has to be in the first slot. So, what's your feedback on the English and GT section today? So, did you find it kind of easy, difficult? What was like students' reaction all about?
So the students, I did look around specifically because I knew I was going on air today. For both English and GT, I think I would call the paper fairly simple, straightforward, not very complicated. Um, there was a whole lot of combination. The questions pretty much were, it covered figures of speech, it covered antonyms, match the following in English. It had parajumbles, but more importantly, it had three RCs. And the questions for each of these three RCs, and I did remember how many questions came from each of them. There were 6 questions for each RC, and they were interspersed. So that perhaps, if one didn't manage well, could have rattled off some people. Because when you read the full passage and then you do 2 other questions, and some other passage comes, and then you're answering the question, that could have thrown people a little off gear in terms of speed and also the focus on that particular RC. And I will, if you permit me, I would like to cover some strategy around how one could have handled it, which is what I did. So English pretty much was simple. The aim is to reach the end of the paper, Amitendra, because what did happen as I was going through the paper, there were questions where one could get stuck for more than a minute. So you have 45 minutes to answer 40 questions. And when you're actually debating, deciding whether or not to take that question, you lose time. So on an average, you have 1 whole minute to answer one question. So a couple of strategies in English that worked well for me, and I finished a little ahead of time, is at reach the end of the question, because one question at a time is what it shows you on the screen. If you don't know the answer, move on to the next. Now, as you move on to the next, and as has been covered in the previous analysis, what the CBT or the test allows you to do is skip the question totally. Second thing, skip the question and mark it for a review. That gets coded differently. Third, answer the question. Fourth, answer the question and mark it for a review. So the strategy that I followed is where I was very sure I'm going to get that 5 marks, because remember, guys, there is a negative marking. So you can do one question right, 5 wrong, you will end up with a 0. One question right, 6 wrong, you will end up with a -1. So where you're extremely confident of the answer, you give the answer and do not mark it for review. But where you're not very sure, you give the answer and mark it for review so that you can come back. Third, where you're not sure at all, skip the question and move ahead. But in your rough sheets, make a note the question number and what the topic was. So in the end, if you're so left with not doing 40 questions, you can go back to that. The fourth option is skip the question and mark it for review, where you sort of know the answer, but you're not sure, don't mark it so that you can come back to it for review. That's strategy number 1 that I followed. Number 2, As the RC passages kept coming, I just wrote the passage title and I marked the questions which pertain to that RC. So at the end of the 39th or 40th question, I had three RC passages with questions stacked against each. So I read RC passage 1 and went and clicked on each of the questions and went and answered it. So that saved time. So in short, I could answer one RC passage, 6 questions in less than 3 minutes. So that gave me more time. So these are a couple of the strategies which I followed. Third, I think in this paper today, both for English and GT, and I'll come to GT in a bit, but for English, it was not as slam dunk. So if you shortlisted the answer, then you might have had to do one more. So say you shortlisted 2 out of 4, you might have to do one more level of check before you actually gave the right answer. So it was not as easy as you get one answer right, then you know the rest of it, even in match the following. So it was not as simple as that. So there was a slight twist. So that is all about English. When it came to GT, we had a total of 75 questions, as everyone knows, and you had to answer 50. I followed the same strategy as in English, which means reach the end of the paper, where you're very sure, give the answer, etc., etc. In GT, once again, the choices, there were choices which were very close to each other, specifically in match the following and or where you had to actually decide which of the things is it's an event led match the followings which came. Two answers were very close to each other. So if you didn't know which is the capital of which state, it would often have two of the capitals which were, I won't say confusing. If you know it, you know it. But if you don't know it, you cannot guess. So it was very close. So you had to know the answer. In terms of current affairs, I think it pretty much covered what it usually does. It covered politics. It covered a bit of recent, occurrences or events. It also had questions for brand ambassador. Who's the brand ambassador for Adidas? It had questions around Miss India. Which of them is an odd one out? So they gave Lara Datta, who was not Miss Universe or Miss World. So there were a fair number of questions which could rattle you or throw you off gear. You would end up thinking it's very easy and you've done the right thing, but you might actually have not done the right answer. So specifically in GT, it was very important to mark those questions which you know confidently for, don't mark it for review, but where you're a little in doubt, mark it for review and go back and answer it. So that's pretty much how English and GT was today, Amitendra.
Yeah. So thanks, Sujatha. In fact, you have given a whole lot of strategy for the students actually, and that would really help. That reminds me, before I come back to you for the subject, and obviously I'll come back to Pravin sir for the humanities part. One thing which has been consistent over the last 4 days, actually, if we talking about the English section, uh, while it may be confusing, but the best part is the words when it comes to antonyms or synonyms, or even when it comes to the spelling error, they are the ones I think which we come across often actually on a daily basis. Actually, if I talk about today, I remember it correctly: pandemic, psychology, spelling errors, psychology was there, sturdy, crusade. I think this is something which we read more often, actually, if not everyday basis, almost in a week, we definitely read about. Somebody who's especially into reading, somebody who's especially into newspaper reading, even actually, I think they would have felt a little bit comfortable actually. Is phrases के question थे as the following में. So if I that's the feedback. Metaphor, simile, you covered. Figures of speech की बात हुई थी. Even synonym, cavity and calamity, I think, and this is the time when we are in the month of July, we talk about floods, we talk about calamity. I think जो ये element है, I think reading that is very very important from that perspective. GK, when you are talking about for the GT section, I think confusing बिल्कुल है options, and but close हो सकते हैं. But if one has worked really well, somebody who spends time understanding what's happening around me, because while the question may seem to be a static GK one, there are a couple of questions I would like to point out here. They are very current affairs actually. Now, if the question today, which was about Sri Lankan currency, I
Correct.
think considering the crisis, one should definitely know about it. You have to read it in depth. तो श्रीलंका का जो करेंसी पूछा गया था, बाय द वे गाइस, इट इज आल्सो रुपी व्हिच कंसिस्ट ऑफ 100 सेंट्स. वहां सेंट्स चलता नहीं है क्योंकि उसकी वैल्यू काफी कम है. But then it is also rupee. The fact is कि it is because of the crisis that question is there. वो strike किया mind में जिसने भी paper set किया और उसने डाला वहां पे. President of Ukraine, I think that needs no introduction. There was a different exam where they had different spellings given actually for the options. That could be a different issue. But यहाँ पे तो straightforward question था. World Environment Day we celebrated last month, 5th of June. I think so. While these all we classify in terms of teaching a static GK when we read them, because these are something which are fixed. Rupee is something which is fixed. Environment Day is something which is fixed. But all of them had connect, recent connect. So जो
Yes.
current static GK है, I would say that is more like a current affairs. CM of Uttarakhand, he lost the election, still he was made the chief minister. He recently won the election once again. Nominal GDP, IMF ने अभी report दिया था 142nd rank, and I think that is the rank option which was given. Otherwise, we are the 5th largest economy. Purchasing power parity की बात करेंगे तो we are the 3rd largest in terms of nominal GDP. So I think talking about GT and English from where you left, continuing that, I think it is more about how much effort one is putting up actually and how serious one is looking at this examination. I think that is more important. So all the candidates who have the paper in the second slot, second phase, August mein jo hoga, and if you have English and GT, I think the best way is to spend those next 13 days practicing, working really hard. That is something which is very, very important. Sujatha, you also had commerce today, actually. So you gave accountancy and business studies. Those were two subjects. Now, accountancy is something which over the last 3 days, students have felt really happy about. Business studies on the second day had a mixed reaction actually, but accountancy everybody has felt really happy about in the last. So, what was the paper like today? Was it on the expected lines, and how different or similar it was as per the NTA sample mock which they had released?
Yeah, so I would say it was simple if one had done three things. One is concepts were clear. If you had gone through, partnerships, be it not-for-profit organization, any of the thing, ratios. If one had done the concepts well and had the ability to solve a thing, it was easy. Concepts was one thing which got tested very much. The second thing was definitions, and third thing is working. So they were almost like problems, but instead of asking you to solve where you could get 8 on 10 if you half solved it, here you had to reach the answer. Then, if you didn't know how to solve that particular problem, you're not going to reach the answer. So if you knew your concepts well, if you knew your definitions well, and if you had the ability, if you had practiced enough on the problems, I would call it an easy paper. Now, anything you move away from, it could get tougher, toughest. Simple reason, if you hadn't practiced enough, then that problem itself would have been intimidating because you would have to solve it to reach the answer. The second part was the answers in, I would say 50% of the questions, there were two answers which were close to each other. You could not take a simple guess. What is the maximum number of partners to guess kar sakte ho if they gave an 89 and a 50? Because 89 to ho nahi sakta, to 50 theek hai. But if they gave you 50 and 100, how would you guess? So there were guesswork ka chance isme thoda kam tha, is what I felt. But pretty much the paper was simple if you went through these three items well. Otherwise, you could have found it difficult. When I looked around for people who were doing accountancy, and I did look around, I think people did struggle a little bit compared to business studies or English or GT. So, as you're taking the test, when you all enter the exam, you will realize you're facing the screen. To your left, you will see a nice answer key below which it's all the color coding is visible. So if I glanced around the room, people were struggling. At halftime, people had not done half the questions. So that is what I saw in accounts vis-a-vis business studies or English or GT in that order. So I wouldn't call it a tough paper, but people took time to solve the problems for sure.
Okay. So, any specific area you would like the students to focus upon when it comes to accountancy from the syllabus aspect of it?
See, partnership, maximum number of questions come from that in various formats, be it match the following, be it what kind of account. So the questions were like, what are the two types of accounts out of this which are done in a partnership firm? So they'll tell you P&L suspense account, P&L this account. partner's capital account, choose any two, and they'll give you B plus C, C plus D. So that if you don't know the definition or if you don't know the answer, you cannot guess. So partnership per se, I think that's also a vast topic, had maximum number of questions. So people should not miss out on that. And given you can choose 40 out of 50, you do partnerships well, you do a little bit of NPO, you do ratios, and you do compute. Actually, computing had 3 or 4 questions. I remember at least 3 questions. And the questions were something like, when you open an Excel sheet, what's the first thing you should do to use it? Go to the home key, go to control key, go to something. Those were the 4 options. Or what is the control and other button you should do for a ribbon sign? What is DBMS? So these were the kind of questions which came in computing. And I think in today's day and age, computing ke jitne bhi questions aate hain, that should be easy, because it is based on your usage. How you're using is what is getting tested. So partnerships, computing, I think if they focus, and a little bit on share capital had again 4 to 6, 8 questions. So if you focus on these three, I would not recommend you leave out anything, because वो partnership में एक question नहीं आया, some other subject or topic has to bail you out. So go through everything, but do these very much in depth. My only input for accounts would be, get your fundas clear. Don't leave it to chance saying मैं वहां जाके solve कर लूंगी या कर लूंगा. तो आपने जरूर problems paper लेके बकायदा solve करना है, because only if you solved it, आप वहां सही answer दे पाओगे. So that is my quick tip for accounts.
Okay, so we'll continue with that actually. So before moving on to Pravin sir, there is a question which has come up. Student ने पूछा है, ma'am, what about share and debentures?
Sorry, what about shares and debenture पे? I don't remember any question that came, but share capital पे आया था, allotment, application उस पे आया था, relinquishing share capital when a partner leaves उस पे आया था. Debenture, I was thinking, I don't think any questions came on debenture. Debenture वैसे भी छोटा topic है. Debentures पे कोई question मुझे याद नहीं आया था आज. Share capital पे 3-4 questions आए थे. So that's why I said share capital, yeah.
Okay. More or less, I think it has been a consistent thing actually. So while you were talking about computerized accounting, last 3 days, we also got this, like 3 questions have been asked in every paper actually of accounting. So I think, but then students must realize, आपको ये ध्यान में रखना होगा, all of those who are listening right now, the trend might change in the second phase. They might not continue. So that's a kind of disclaimer, I would say. You must take it with a pinch of salt. कि ऐसा नहीं कि आज 3 आया तो अगली बार भी 3 ही आएगा. नेक्स्ट टाइम हो सकता है अकाउंटिंग, कंप्यूटराइज अकाउंटिंग के ऊपर हो सकता है 5 क्वेश्चन आ जाए, पार्टनरशिप के ऊपर 5 की बजाय 2 ही क्वेश्चन आए. So what Sujatha said, ki you must not leave anything actually, because that will also give you that option. Anyways, you have 10 questions to leave. So if you have done everything, I think you'll be in a much better position. Sujatha, will come back to you. Let's head to Pravin. Pravin sir has been waiting, and I'm sure students have been waiting. Moksh, I'll come back with maths. Okay, so I'll come back with that feedback. प्रवीण सर, व्हाट अबाउट ह्यूमैनिटीज टुडे? आपने कल बहुत ही ब्यूटीफुली इनसाइट दिया था, बहुत चीजें बताई थी, स्टूडेंट्स को टिप्स भी दिए थे. हाउ हेल्पफुल वाज दैट? आपको लगा आज जो फीडबैक आया बच्चों का, मतलब कितना, हाउ हैप्पी वर दे एक्चुअली?
Sir, overall in humanities subject, total number of 5 subjects include, sir, history, geography, political science, psychology, and sociology, sir. And 4 type of question is common in every subject, sir. First is like passage based, and students know very well they have to solve only 40 question out of the 50 questions. So when we consider a question like passage based question, as we see in NTA sample paper also, there were 5 to 10 question from passage based. So they can easily solve by seeing the question, that passage is given, answer is also given in passage, so no need to remember or recall any factual things. You can read the passage and easily can solve the 10 questions, sir. So second type of question, more common seen in all humanities subject, is like chronological order, sir. And when we talk about chronological order, this type of question basically we see more in history, where we see events happened like national movement, when quit India movement was happened, when civil disobedience movement was happened. So this type of chronological order question more you see in history. And second is your political science. So as I told you yesterday, that this year COT more focus on book 2, that is politics in India since independence, and they completely neglected the contemporary world politics. Only a few questions were there from like Cold War era, alternative center of power, and they given more focus on the politics in India since independence. And one thing you very well said, sir, like students should not keep them limited to NCRT. They must read a newspaper, watch news analysis every day, because one question in history there was about Ashok national emblem, sir. And recently our prime minister inaugurated new national emblem in new parliament. तो कहीं ना कहीं क्वेश्चन करंट अफेयर के पार्ट जो हिस्ट्री के जो न्यूज में आ रहे हैं वहां से भी पूछे जा रहे हैं. तो although you NTA directly said that the question will be from NCRT, but students should also read a newspaper, because they will get a lot of information. They will lot of concepts they will able to means find out from the newspaper. They can match with their humanities subjects. तो लाइक पॉलिटिकल साइंस में भी जैसे क्वेश्चंस फिर से आज भी इमरजेंसी पे क्वेश्चंस थे. दे हैड अ क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम एशियन वे, मींस अगेन रिपीटेड क्वेश्चन. दे ऑलरेडी हैड गिवन अ क्वेश्चन इन एनटीए सिंपल पेपर लाइक हु अमंग द फॉलोइंग कंट्री इज द पावर ऑफ एक्सिस पावर में कौन कौन से थे ड्यूरिंग अ वर्ल्ड वार. तो सेम क्वेश्चन रिपीट अभी भी हुए हैं. तो जैसे कि मैंने कल कहा था कि एनटीए सैंपल पेपर को यू शुड टेक एज अ सीरियस. ऐसा नहीं कि आपने आंसर की सॉल्व कर लिया और आपका काम खत्म हो गया. एनटीए सैंपल पेपर जो भी अपलोड किया उसका मेन आइडिया यही है कि स्टूडेंट शुड नो हाउ टू रीड एनसीईआरटी एंड हाउ टू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट. बिकॉज रिसेंटली वट एवर हैपनिंग इन इंडिया व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स, ओके, और अगर प्रेसिडेंट का इलेक्शन की बात करते हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं एप्लीकेशन पूछा जा रहा है ह्यूमैनिटीज के सब्जेक्ट्स में भी. कहीं ना वो सारे पार्ट को अगर स्टूडेंट सोचते हैं थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट उसको कहीं ना कहीं इग्नोर किया जा रहा है, और जो कि लेटर जो उनके आगे के समय में जो कि काम आ सकते हैं पॉलिटिक्स में वो सारे क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं सर. और जैसे कि साइकोलॉजी में भी काफी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन है. डायरेक्टली दे आस्क क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम दी बुक, नेम ऑफ द साइकोलॉजिस्ट ने क्या कॉन्सेप्ट दिए हैं. तो स्टूडेंट को क्या है कि दे शुड नो वेरी वेल, दे कंप्लीट द चैप्टर. एट द सेम टाइम दे शुड नो द कॉन्सेप्ट लाइक व्हाट इज एम्पैथी, व्हाट इज वैल्यू. ओके, ये सारे क्वेश्चन स्कीमा क्या है उसके डायरेक्ट स्टेटमेंट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन पूछे जा रहे हैं. काफी सारे स्टूडेंट से मेरी बात हुई साइकोलॉजी जिसने दिए, उन्होंने कहा है कि सर सैंपल पेपर को सॉल्व करने के बाद हम लोग काफी इजी हुआ आज का पेपर सॉल्व करने में. तो दिस इज द वी कैन से व्हाट एवर वी हैव डन इन मॉक टेस्ट जो भी हम लोग ने किया और यूट्यूब का सेशन जो हम लोग लिया था, दैट इज मोर गिविंग मोर बेनिफिट टू द स्टूडेंट हु मींस जो अटेंड किए हैं सारे सेशंस को सर. और सोशियोलॉजी भी बेसिकली और सारे सेम पैटर्न ऑफ क्वेश्चंस हैं, लाइक डायरेक्ट स्टेटमेंट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है. देयर इज नो एनी मतलब कि एक बार जिसने बुक को कंप्लीट कर लिया है वी कैन इजीली सॉल्व ऑल द क्वेश्चंस सर.
इनफैक्ट वी स्पोक अबाउट दैट ना, कल हमने बात किया था कि इन केस यू मिस्ड आउट अटेंडिंग द सीयूईटी मैराथन, आप उन वीडियोस को एक्सेस कर सकते हो यूट्यूब चैनल पे, करियर लॉन्चर सीयूईटी चैनल पे आप एक्सेस कर सकते हो. वी स्पोक अबाउट दैट. इनफैक्ट अगर वो वीडियो आप देख लेंगे तो आपको ऑल स्टूडेंट्स को पता लग जाएगा कि एनटीए का जो पेपर है वो उसकी पूरी स्टोरी क्या है, और वो एक्चुअली देखा जाए तो बेंचमार्क है आपके एग्जामिनेशन को लेकर के. मतलब सो फर्स्ट ईयर है, डिफिकल्ट पेपर हम भी बोल रहे थे, हमने स्टार्टिंग से ही बोला है फर्स्ट ईयर है, डिफिकल्ट नहीं आएगा. नेक्स्ट ईयर स्टोरी डेफिनेटली चेंज हो जाएगी, बट फर्स्ट ईयर है, हम सब एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे. बट इसका एंड रिजल्ट भी मैंने बताया, आई एम बीइंग वेरी प्रैक्टिकल. देखो पेपर इजी होता है तो कट ऑफ हाई जाता है, उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंस बहुत सीधा सा है. तो बेस्ट ये है कि आप बिल्कुल पैनिक किए बिना अपना अच्छे से जो एग्जाम है अपना बेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस दे करके आओ. यू डोंट हैव एनी कंट्रोल फॉर द नेक्स्ट 1 मंथ, तो अपना जो परफॉर्मेंस है उसको बेहतर करने की कोशिश करो. 10 डेज 15 डेज जो भी समय है, किसी का 20th को एग्जाम है, किसी का 18th को एग्जाम है, किसी का 5th को है. सो वट एवर टाइम यू हैव गॉट, यूटिलाइज दैट. Forget about everything else in the world. Next 10 days are going to be very, very crucial. Use the resources. If you are a CL student, you have got so many resources. Just in case you are not, go ahead with our channel. आप channel पे हमारा CUET marathon जो हमने किया था वो आप चेक करो. That will be really, really grateful for you. Great for you actually. बहुत help मिल जाएगा उससे.
इवन आवर सर मॉक जो पेपर जो थे सर, हमारे मॉक पेपर जो हम लोगों ने बनाए हैं सर पूरे सब्जेक्ट्स के, वो भी एक अब मतलब बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट करेंगे उनसे काफी इजी लेवल देखा गया. हम लोग का जो मॉक था हम लोगों ने एक हाई स्टैंडर्ड को मेंटेन किया था कि हम लोग को लगा कि क्वेश्चन विल बी लाइक एजर्शन रिजल्ट से एक भी क्वेश्चन नहीं है सर, और मैप से भी कोई क्वेश्चंस नहीं है, जो कि हम लोग एजर्शन रीजंस पे ज्यादा फोकस किए थे कि मे बी दिस टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन विल बी देयर. And also we expected more question from your like picture based question which we saw in psychology के जो पेपर थे उसमें एक इमेज दिया उसके ऊपर क्वेश्चंस है. तो वैसे क्वेश्चंस देखे नहीं गए, लेकिन हमारे मॉक टेस्ट पेपर में काफी सारे क्वेश्चन हम लोग ने रखे थे. तो जो स्टूडेंट अगर उस मॉक टेस्ट पेपर को अच्छे सॉल्व कर लेते हैं तो ऑब्वियसली दे विल गेट मोर बेनिफिट सर. They will
Concept
understand
clarity.
entire concept. Factual or conceptual clarity will be happen very soon.
Okay, so I'll come back to both of you. Maths का feedback बच्चों ने पूछा है कि what about the mathematics? So you need to understand अभी जो mathematics है वो applied mathematics पे काम story पूरी जो है वो revolve कर रही है, क्योंकि जो कोर मैथ्स है वो वही बच्चे हैं जो मतलब साइंसेज वाले स्टूडेंट्स हैं, उन्होंने ही ज्यादातर लोगों ने कोर मैथ्स ऑप्ट किया है. एंड वी ऑल नो कि जो साइंस के स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनका एग्जाम फेज 2 में होगा. फेज 1 में सिर्फ कॉमर्स और ह्यूमैनिटीज के. इनफैक्ट आज बहुत कम स्टूडेंट्स थे ह्यूमैनिटीज के जिनका एग्जाम था. आज मेजरली कॉमर्स था, अकाउंट्स बिजनेस स्टडीज वाले लोग ज्यादा थे. तो जो अप्लाइड मैथ्स की बात करें तो आज जो टॉपिक्स जिन पे क्वेश्चन पूछे गए थे, एंड इट वाज नॉट डिफिकल्ट. अपस्ट्रीम डाउनस्ट्रीम के करीब 3-4 क्वेश्चन थे. मैट्रिक्स के ऊपर, मैट्रिसेस के ऊपर 4 क्वेश्चन थे. डेरिवेशंस के ऊपर 4 क्वेश्चन थे. इंटीग्रेशन से 6 क्वेश्चन आया था. प्रोबेबिलिटी के ऊपर भी 2 क्वेश्चन थे. सो जो प्रिस्क्राइब्ड सिलेबस है दे आर स्टिकिंग टू दैट. उसी पे रहो, उसके बियॉन्ड जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. जितना भी उन्होंने प्रिस्क्राइब किया है, द ओनली थिंग इज you have to be clear which one you are taking up. आप section B1 ले रहे हो, B2 ले रहे हो, whether you are going ahead with the applied mathematics or core mathematics, that's a choice they have given to you. I think in that way they have made your life easier. So आपने जो भी 11th 12th में पढ़ा है उसके बेसिस पे ही आप अपना एग्जाम लिखोगे. तो कॉमन एलिमेंट है तो जो है वो तो 15 क्वेश्चंस हैं ही. बियॉन्ड दैट 25 क्वेश्चंस आपके हाथ में है. सो आई थिंक जस्ट keep that practice on. Mathematics is always about practice. कोविड में लोगों की आदतें थोड़ी बिगड़ गई थी, सोकर मैथ्स पढ़ रहे थे. So I think अब वापस टेबल पे आना पड़ेगा. But I think that is something which you have to work upon. Practice करके I think you can easily get through this subject. Sujatha, we have a question, I think, and this is about accountancy only. Ma'am, was the paper more theoretical or practical?
So the paper was more practical, I would say, because a lot of questions, so other than the definitions which you had to know, so what is a IRR, what is a CRR, वो सब आपको पता होना चाहिए. So if you knew the concepts and you had solved, that's why I use the word solving was important. So it was, to that extent, I would say 60-40. Solving करना बहुत जरूरी था to arrive at the answer. जहां वो theoretical आता है, it was very clearly definitions. So you can't leave out any corner cases. You have to know the exact definition. You have to know कि इस type के firm में what are the 2 types of account you definitely look at, what doesn't come under, under the preview. You need to know the ratios का definition. You need to know गुडविल की ट्रीटमेंट कैसे होती है. सो व्हेन इट केम टू थियोरी, इट वाज क्लियर, ओपन एंड शट केस ऑफ डेफिनेशंस. The rest of it, I would insist, that's why solving is very important. And take as many sheets. You're allowed to take blank paper. So I personally took 6 sheets. हंसना मत, मैंने 6 blank papers लिए, because वैसे भी मेरी आदत है solve करने की and मैं सब कुछ लिख लेती हूँ. So please make sure you are shameless. You take as many sheets as possible and you have to solve it on your blank sheet before you give the answer. So that's the, वो थोड़ा लंबा आंसर बता दिया मैंने. तो सॉल्विंग करना जरूरी था. इट वॉज अ लॉट प्रैक्टिकल, बट कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी की जरूरत बहुत थी इसमें.
Okay, so there is some power issue at my end. Unfortunately, most of you cannot see me on the camera. Okay,
Now
so Sujatha, you also had some inputs about the mathematics.
Yeah. So, and that also brings me to the rules. Rules पढ़ना बहुत जरूरी है, and I think सारे दिन हमने rules के बारे में बहुत emphasize किया है, because the rules that they use for this exam can rattle you, including आप exam center पहुंचते हो, women especially on this call, and those of you who know other women or girls who are taking this exam, females specifically, ये कान की बाली, नाक का ये, they make you take out everything depending on which center it is. So if you reach the center at 8:30 and you're told अभी ये निकालो, सब कुछ निकालो, so you're not supposed to go with anything, not even not even a hair clip. So be very clear of all that. So read all the instructions well. When you log in, it tells you the instruction. अमितेंद्र, आपने cover कर लिया है ये math and computer sciences में the first 15 questions mandatory है, उसमें choice नहीं दी जाएगी. एंड ये बहुत ध्यान में रखना है. उसमें जो क्वेश्चंस आएंगे आपको आंसर करने पड़ेंगे. क्वेश्चन नंबर 16 to 50 विच इज 35 क्वेश्चंस, उनमें से आपको 25 करने हैं. पर पहले 15 क्वेश्चन आपको, अगर आप कंप्यूटर साइंस लेते हो या मैथ अप्लाइड या बेसिक लेते हो, आपको पहले 15 क्वेश्चंस करने होंगे, ये भूलना नहीं आप, ये ध्यान में रखिए। एंड एक और चीज, सिंस आई एम स्पीकिंग अबाउट दिस, रूल्स में लिखा है द फर्स्ट 40 क्वेश्चंस दैट यू सॉल्व विल बी कंसिडर्ड। आप 41st करने जाओ या जीटी में 51st करने जाओ, इट विल पुट अ
61st,
नाइस पॉपअप। जीटी में 50 करने हैं तो उसमें
60,
51st,
60.
60, okay, 60 करने हैं 61st, it will put a nice pop-up saying please uncheck one of the questions to do this, and तभी आप struggle करोगे कि मैं कौन सा question uncheck करूं, because you will suddenly realize that 3 ये तो बहुत आसान है, ये तो मुझे surely पता है answer. That is why when I gave you the strategy, I told you as you are answering the question, जो आपको पक्का पता है 5 मार्क्स मिलने ही हैं, उसको आप रिव्यू के लिए ना मार्क करें, आंसर कीजिए, टिक मार्क चेक कीजिए, आगे चले जाइए। जो आप श्योर नहीं हो आंसर करने के बावजूद प्लीज मार्क फॉर रिव्यू कीजिए एंड अपने ब्लैंक पेपर में लिख दीजिए क्वेश्चन नंबर 17 मार्क्ड फॉर रिव्यू, ये क्वेश्चन था। तो जब आपको जाके 41st क्वेश्चन आंसर करना है बाकी केस में या 61st करना है जीटी में, आपको पता होना चाहिए यू जस्ट हैव टू गो एंड अनचेक द मार्क्ड फॉर रिव्यू वन, दैट्स ऑल यू हैव टू डू। आसान हो जाता है, नहीं तो आई हैव सीन पीपल, आई लुक्ड अराउंड स्ट्रगलिंग कि कौन सा अनचेक करें। या दैट्स ऑल आई हैड ऑन मैथ।
Okay, so are RC questions still coming as jumbled? Yes, they are still coming as jumbled, and I think that is how the paper will be all throughout, even phase 2. So definitely थोड़ा pressure add होता है, but I think सुजाता gave you that strategy कि उसको कैसे अप्रोच करना है, बिल्कुल सिंपल तरीका है। जितने भी आरसी के क्वेश्चन है नंबर्स नोट कर लो और एक बार वापस आकर के उसको करो, ज्यादा बेटर है। आई थिंक वो सिंपल प्रोसेस को अपनाओ, बट ये आई थिंक कंटिन्यूटी रहेगी फेज 2 में भी। मुझे लगता है कि वो एक जगह क्वेश्चंस नहीं लेकर आने वाले हैं, 4 डेज हो चुके हैं, तो आगे भी ये रहेगा, जंबल्ड अप ही रहेगा। तो प्रिपेयर अकॉर्डिंगली, अपनी स्ट्रैटेजी उसी तरीके से बना के चलो, क्वेश्चन बाय क्वेश्चन मूव। ओके, विल टेक वन फाइनल क्वेश्चन ओवर हियर, सेम
Amitendra,
गर्ल।
sorry.
या
On RC, one more point. At least today's paper had very straight jacketed questions. मतलब आप वो comprehension से उठा के आंसर दे सकते थे। 90% of the questions were what sentences were there on the RC. So simple तरीका है, तीनों topics लिख लो, question numbers लिख लो, you might have reached the 50th question, then go to each of these RC. आप हर 6 question 2 मिनट के अंदर आंसर कर पाओगे।
Okay, so same exam center related query. Ma'am, even kada is removed. I
सब
think
other than your clothes, in short, everything is removed. बिंदी मैं पहन के नहीं गई थी, so मुझे पता नहीं, बट हेयर क्लिप भी उन्होंने चेक किया, एंड यू हैड टू रिमूव एवरीथिंग। वॉच नहीं, जो भी वॉच, एनालॉग नहीं, अंगूठी, यू कांट वेयर अ रिंग, यू कांट वेयर अ नोज पिन, यू कांट वेयर ईयर रिंग्स, यू कांट कैरी अ मोबाइल। हाथ में सिर्फ ये चीजें होनी है, या आप लिख लो। आपका आधार कार्ड या विचएवर इज द आईडी प्रूफ, वो भी प्लीज पढ़ लीजिए क्या उसमें है। आपका एडमिट कार्ड, एडमिट कार्ड के साथ 2 फोटोग्राफ्स कैरी करने हैं। अगर एक आपने चिपकाया है, एक और कैरी कर लो। एडमिट कार्ड पे थंब इम्प्रेशन चाहिए, वो भूलना नहीं। सो एडमिट कार्ड, 2 फोटोग्राफ्स, एक वाटर बॉटल, एक आईडी प्रूफ और एक पेन। मुझे पेंसिल भी अलाउ कर दिया था, खैर। दैट इज इट। हाथ में कंगन, एवरीथिंग इज रिमूव, नो चेन, नथिंग, सब कुछ निकालना होता है। Go like that. And another tip, since you're asking this, 8 से पहले पहुंच जाओ। अगर मॉर्निंग स्लॉट है, if your starting time is 8, reach 15 minutes before that. आराम से अंदर चले जाते हो। उसके बाद एक दिक्कत होती है, because you're on your seat at 8 o'clock. वहां टाइम नहीं होता, so you know 1 hour suddenly seems like 6 hours because you don't know what to do. हम में से किसी को आदत नहीं है कि खाली कैसे बैठा जाए। so उसके लिए भी टिप्स दे देती हूँ। बैठ जाइए, डू योर प्राणायाम, डू योर ब्रीदिंग एक्सरसाइजेस, बिकॉज यू विल गेट थरली बोर्ड। आप सिर्फ एक कंप्यूटर स्क्रीन को देखोगे, अगर इधर देखा, इंस्ट्रक्टर टेल्स इधर उधर नहीं देखना, दे विल नॉट अलाउ यू टू टॉक। सो इट इज लाइक अ पनिशमेंट, बट इट इज अ गुड पनिशमेंट, बिकॉज लेट जाओगे और लाइन लगेगी, यू विल गेट इवन मोर हैसल्ड। जल्दी चले जाइए, जूते भी उतार के चेक करते हैं, सो सैंडल पहन के जाइए सो दैट दे डोंट टेक इट आउट फॉर यू। These are very silly things, छोटी चीजें हैं, but it will help you stay calm. और फिर 1 घंटा आराम से ब्रीदिंग कर लीजिए। इंस्ट्रक्टर will tell you अभी स्टार्ट होने वाला है 5 मिनट में। You do all your entries and be ready on your machine. It's very cool.
So in fact, just follow the instructions. Anything which is not mentioned on the admit card, other than the clothes, of course, as you mentioned. So anything which is not there on the admit card, don't carry it. Pins की बात कर रहे हैं, ड्रेस कोड कोई डिफाइंड नहीं है, बट सिंपल वही है कि शूज भी ओपन कर रहे हैं, शूज खोलकर आपको दिखाना है. तो जितना सिंपल लाइट क्लोथिंग हो उतना बेटर है, आपके लिए भी कंफर्टेबल रहेगा एग्जामिनेशन हॉल में. सो जो एडमिट कार्ड पे जितने इंस्ट्रक्शंस हैं उसको बहुत स्ट्रिक्टली फॉलो करो. एनीथिंग बियॉन्ड दैट, आई थिंक दे आर गोइंग टू क्रिएट ट्रबल फॉर दैट. एंड लास्ट मोमेंट ये टेंशन हो जाएगा, झूठ मूठ कर रखे कहाँ, किसको दे, किसको हैंड ओवर करे, वो प्रॉब्लम है. Okay, so just the final phase, I'll come back to you, Sujatha, once again. Pravin sir, what's going to be your final tip for the students now that there is a gap of 13 days, minimum 13 days between the next phase and this phase? Ab seedha 4th August ko exam hoga, so what is your take? What would you recommend as part of strategy, preparation strategy for the students?
Yes, sir. First of all, I will say everyone to solve again NTA sample paper and solve all MCQs which we created in humanities subjects. मॉक टेस्ट पेपर जो हम लोग ने बनाया उसको सॉल्व करें. नथिंग मीन्स अभी कुछ नया पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. जो आप एनसीईआरटी पढ़ चुके हैं उसी को रिपीट कीजिए. एंड जैसे मैंने बताया कि मेनी ऑफ द क्वेश्चन दे आस्क फ्रॉम द करंट अफेयर. मीन्स करंट अफेयर का वो इश्यूज में है, लेकिन वो आपके सब्जेक्ट्स कोर पार्ट में आते हैं. जैसे कि हिस्ट्री के मैंने बताया, प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्शंस पे काफ़ी सारे क्वेश्चंस आ रहे हैं. तो वैसे न्यूज़पेपर को पढ़कर आपके जो ह्यूमैनिटीज सब्जेक्ट कोर पार्ट है उस पर भी आप फोकस जरूर कीजिए. So this 10 days you can utilize in a more judicious way by solving more and more MCQs.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pravin sir, and thank you for joining us. Sujatha, what's your advice to the students in the next 10 days, what they should be doing and for the phase 2?
तो प्रवीण सर ने बोला उस डू ऑल ऑफ दैट. वो एक जीरा गोली उन्होंने दे दी कि प्रैक्टिस करना. मैं 2 और जीरा गोलियां देती हूँ आपको. जीरा गोली मतलब वो छोटा कैप्सूल जो आप खा के पछताएंगे नहीं, बेनिफिट होगा. प्रवीण सर ने आपसे कहा प्रैक्टिस एज मेनी एमसीक्यूज, डेफिनेटली डू दैट, एंड दैट अप्लाइज फॉर ऑल स्ट्रीम्स, राइट? ह्यूमैनिटीज हो, साइंसेस हो, इंग्लिश हो, जीटी हो, कॉमर्स हो, जो भी हो. मैं उस पे एक एडिशन बोलूंगी. जैसे आप एग्जाम में देने वाले हो, मतलब आपके एडमिट कार्ड में अगर 4 सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, इंग्लिश है, जीटी है, फिजिक्स है, केमिस्ट्री है, या इंग्लिश है, साइकोलॉजी है, सोशियोलॉजी है, जीटी है, आप स्ट्रैटेजी अभी से बना लीजिए. कौन सा सब्जेक्ट आप पहले देंगे, कौन सा सेकंड देंगे, कौन सा थर्ड देंगे एंड कौन सा फोर्थ देंगे. ये आप जरूर अभी से गांठ बांध लीजिए. यूजुअली क्या होता है, हम या तो सोचते हैं जैसे खाना परोसते हैं ना प्लेट पे, जो हमको पसंद है पहले खा लेते हैं. अगर किसी ने कहा थाली फिनिश करनी है, फिर इट इज अ प्रॉब्लम, बिकॉज जो नहीं पसंद वो तो मुझे खाना नहीं, एंड में स्ट्रेस भी हो जाता है. सो दैट इज वन स्ट्रैटेजी. स्टार्ट विद द सब्जेक्ट विच यू आर मोस्ट कंफर्टेबल विद, ताकि आप पहला सब्जेक्ट जो चूज करते हो, से मेरा इंग्लिश है या बिजनेस स्टडीज है या जीटी है, मैं उससे शुरुआत करूंगी. जो टफ है, जो आपको लगता है ये मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगी, इससे मेरा मन थोड़ा अस्थिर हो जाएगा, बाकी के पेपर्स भी खराब हो जाएंगे, उसको आप सेकेंड लास्ट या थर्ड लास्ट रखना. इफ यू हैव 4 पेपर्स, उसको सेकेंड लास्ट रखना, उसको लास्ट में नहीं रखना. फॉर द सिंपल रीजन, लास्ट में रखोगे, बाय द टाइम यू रीच द एंड यू आर वेरी टायर्ड. So you don't want to do a tough subject which is tough with you in the end. Last में थोड़ा हल्का रखना. Start with your best bet, end with your second best bet. The worst bet you put second last, or second. Go with that second. Yeah. क्या होता है इसमें? They allow you to choose. आपके 4 सब्जेक्ट्स आ जाते हैं या 5 आ जाते हैं. You click, your timer starts. Now between 2 they give you 0 gap. अगर इंस्ट्रक्टर ने देख लिया एक सब्जेक्ट हो गया and you've not started the next, she will come and start it, or he will come and start it. Okay? So if you want to take a loo break, take a permission. They allow you with great difficulty. But if you have to do it, do it. But between 2 subjects, they don't give you any gap. Be a little smart and take a 1 minute or 2 minute gap, drink a little water, breathe, recoup yourself and come back. So that is my first Jira Goli. How do you do it at the exam? The second one is, ये एग्जाम का एनवायरनमेंट जो है, फॉर दोस ऑफ यू हु टेकन मेनी सच टेस्ट, इट्स ओके. आई वेंट आफ्टर 30 years. I didn't do this back to back 3 hour, 15 minutes kind of thing. So fatigue sets in. You have this environment wherever you have registered for taking your mocks or whatever, जो आपने 4 या 5 सब्जेक्ट लिए हैं उसको 4 या 5 बार कीजिए. Sit in front of the machine for that 3 hour 15 minutes or 2 hours 45 minutes or 3 hours and practice that entire sequence 3 or 4 times. So when you go and enter the exam hall, आसान हो जाता है. It's like muscle memory. मैं 4 बार कर चुकी हूँ, ये 5वीं बार आसान लगता है. एंड आप स्ट्रैटेजी भी बदल सकते हैं, कौन सा सब्जेक्ट पहले करूं, कौन सा सब्जेक्ट बाद में करूं. तो यू हैव 10-12 दिन है, 3 बार ये कर लीजिए. ये सेकंड है. द लास्ट टिप इज डू नॉट मिस रीचिंग द एंड ऑफ द पेपर. आप पहले 40 क्वेश्चन टफ है कर लोगे, बाद में रियलाइज करोगे लास्ट के, एंड टिपिकली लास्ट 3-4 क्वेश्चंस आर वेरी इजी. सो इफ यू वांट स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द एंड, वो पेपर के एंड तक जाना मत भूलिए. या दीस आर माय 3 टिप्स. डोंट पैनिक. सिस्टम हैंग हो गया, दे टेक केयर ऑफ यू, दे आर वेरी स्वीट एट द एग्जामिनेशन हॉल. प्यार से बात कीजिए, एवरीथिंग गेट्स टेकन केयर ऑफ. सिस्टम, मेरा टाइमर नहीं ठीक से चल रहा था, देयर वाज अ लाइन बट आई समहाउ मैनेज्ड. ऐसे हो सकता है किसी किसी मशीन में. पैनिक ना कीजिए. सो दैट दोस आर माय टिप्स, अमितेंद्र.
Thank you so much, Sujatha. I think the students must be very motivated now actually, and those who are appearing for the phase 2, they know of what to do actually in the next 10 days. Pravin sir ne bhi tips diye, aapne bhi tips diye. Before we end the session, one final question I'm going to take up, and I think most of the students might be now with this feedback would be thinking about this. Can we utilize the time of the other paper on different subject? No, you cannot, because the timer is set in such a way that you can't move to the next section before that 45 minutes has passed on actually. So जब तक खत्म नहीं हो जाता 45 मिनट, आप जा नहीं सकते हो. आप पहले फिनिश करके भी उसको सबमिट नहीं कर सकते हो. तो वो पेपर का जो अलॉटेड टाइम है वो उस पेपर पे ही खत्म होगा. आपको जो नेक्स्ट पेपर में मूव करना है, जो स्ट्रैटेजी अभी सुजाता ने बताया मूव करना है, उन्होंने एक स्ट्रैटेजी ये भी बता दी कि उसमें आप कैसे 60 सेकेंड्स का पॉज ले सकते हो, एंड दे आर वेरी केयरफुल. बट वो 60 सेकेंड कैसे पॉज कर सकते हो, वो मतलब बेसिकली टू गेट बैक दैट कंसंट्रेशन अगर मैं बोलूं तो वो किस तरीके से कर सकते हो. बट यू कांट टेक दैट 5 मिनट अवे फ्रॉम दिस सेक्शन एंड ऐड इट देयर, वो पॉसिबल नहीं है. सो एवरी सेक्शन other than GT has to be within 45 minutes. GT is where you have got 60 minutes. Okay, so we come to an end to this session today. This marks the end of the phase 1. All 4 days we have been there with you guys. We'll continue to do so. We'll start once again on 4th of August when the phase 2 begins. And at that point of time, all the students who are watching it right now and those who are planning to take up, those who have sciences subjects will be having our science mentors as well at that point of time. So we'll continue with our analysis. Till then, goodbye. And from the entire Career Launcher family, from all the mentors, those who are not present today, I would like to wish you all the best. Don't panic. Give your best shot. जितना पढ़े हो उसको अच्छे से रिवाइज कर लो. नेक्स्ट 10 डेज को अच्छे से यूटिलाइज कर लो. 13 डेज, किसी किसी केस में आपको 15 डेज 20 डेज भी मिल रहे हैं. इफ यू आर लकी, यूटिलाइज दैट. Nobody has an advantage, nobody has a disadvantage. अगर आपको लग रहा है कि जिसका पहले पेपर खत्म हो गया उसको शायद आसान मिला, मेरा डिफिकल्ट होगा, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. You need to understand whenever a paper is conducted over a period of this 1 month, when you have 13 days actually this examination is happening, which means 26 slots. तो सभी slots के पेपर को एक फॉर्मूले के तहत नॉर्मलाइज किया जाएगा. अगर डिफिकल्ट रहा तो स्कोर्स बढ़ेंगे, इजी रहा तो स्कोर्स घटेंगे नॉर्मलाइजेशन प्रोसेस के बाद, और कट ऑफ पे उसका डिफरेंट इंपैक्ट होगा. दिस इज समथिंग यू शुड नॉट वरी एट ऑल एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज next 10, 15, 20 days, whatever time you have, go give your best shot to your preparation. Waste नहीं करना समय को. That is what I would say actually. So thank you so much everyone for attending the session, and thank you so much Sujatha, first of all, for writing the examination and coming on this platform to share your experience and giving the inputs to the students. And Pravin sir, as always, thank you so much. हम आपको तंग करते रहेंगे आगे भी, मतलब next अभी 9 दिन और होने हैं अगस्त में. So we'll continue to have you on this platform actually. So thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Shabba khair.
Thank you.